Meeting is called to order. Let's all stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lois, can you read the statement of certification of the meeting?
A certification of meeting has been advertised according to Sunshine Law.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Venera.
Here.
Mr. Zungri. Mrs. Inaugurato.
Here.
Mr. Kennedy.
I excuse myself because I have my Civic Association breakfast at the Chandelier.
Mr. Conti.
Here.
Mr. Walsh.
Here.
Mrs. Shaw.
Here.
Mr. Medicini.
Here.
Mr. Coviello. Mr. Anello.
Mr. Coviello said he will be attending, but he'll be late.
Mr. DeCorpus. Mr. Harris.
Here.
Mrs. DeVito.
Here.
Mr. DiLorenzo.
Here.
Do I have motions to the approval of minutes of the December 10th, 2015 meeting?
Motion. Second.
Lois, call the roll.
Was that, who seconded?
Mr. Venera.
Yes.
Mrs. Inaugurato.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw.
Yes.
Mr. Medicini.
Take off one.
Chairman's comments. There's nothing at this time. Correspondence and payment of bills. Anyone have any questions or comments? Old business. Anything you'd like to bring up on the old business? We have no resolutions. New business. Now we have an application before the board. It's PB 2015-10, 350 Franklin Avenue, Lyndhurst Real Estate Holding. It's construct a parking lot with 27 spaces to service the Chandelier restaurant. Are you ready?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, council's name is Robert Gassione. The firm is Gassione Climaco, 524 Union Avenue in Belleville. I represent the applicant in this matter, Lyndhurst Real Estate Holding, LLC, the owner of 350 Franklin Avenue. My client is seeking to use the property as accessory parking for the adjacent catering facility, the Chandelier Restaurant, which is at 340 Franklin Ave, immediately adjacent to it. It was the old fruit and vegetable stand for anybody that doesn't know the exact location. We're seeking variance relief for parking within 5 feet of a lot line, spaces that are 9 by 18 as opposed to 9 by 19, and a design waiver with regard to aisle width of 22 as opposed to 24 feet. We're also seeking conditional use approval, as this is a conditional use in the zone, and preliminary and final site plan approval. The witnesses you'll hear from are John Apicella of Lyndhurst Real Estate Holding, LLC, and the Chandelier Restaurant, and Anthony Marucci, the engineer and planner. I'd like to call Mr. Apicella as my first witness. John?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please state your name and spell your last name.
John Apicella, A-P-I-C-E-L-L-A.
Thank you.
Mr. Apicella, what is your business address
340 Franklin Avenue.
and your occupation?
Catering.
How long have you been in the catering business?
Personally, 35 years. Family's been there 41.
And are you one of the members of Lyndhurst Real Estate Holding?
Yes.
And are you also the member of the Lyndhurst Diner, the owner of the adjacent business, the Chandelier?
Yes.
And briefly describe the business and the current parking arrangements.
It's a catering facility. Seats up to 250 people. Our lot is located across the street behind the Wendy's. We also rent the Valley National Bank up the street on the corner of Rollman and Franklin Avenue. And we valet cars back and forth in both spots.
And why are you seeking additional parking?
We just, necessary for more spaces, but also convenient for the smaller parties where they don't have to cross Franklin Avenue, safety reasons, but cut down as much as possible.
And does the entity currently own the lot immediately adjacent to the Chandelier restaurant?
Yes.
And briefly explain what it is you're seeking approval to do.
Just make it a parking spot, parking lot, I believe roughly 27 to 30 spots, according to the plans. It's directly next door, so we do own a lot up the street, but it's attached, so it's just looking to get more spots next to the showroom.
I have no further questions of this witness.
You want us to question him, or you want to bring all the witnesses up?
If you want to question him, I think it would be better to do it now, and then I, of course, have another witness. Mr. Marucci.
Please raise your right hand, sir. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and spell your last name.
Anthony Marucci, M-A-R-U-C-C-I,
Mr. Marucci, what is your business address
116 Whippany Road, Whippany, New Jersey.
and your occupation?
I'm a licensed professional engineer, land surveyor, and professional planner in the state of New Jersey
And how long practicing in your field of engineering?
since 1979, 78 actually.
Not as long as me. Give us a bit of your background with regard to your education.
Mr. Marucci's been here before. We'll accept
Chapman
it.
is an expert both in the field of engineering and planning.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Did you prepare the engineering site plan for the proposed parking lot?
Yes,
And is that an exact copy of what has been submitted?
yes it is.
So then, with the help of the sketch that you have, would you review the location of the property?
The property is 350 Franklin Avenue. It's tax map block 3401, lot 11. It's on the east side of Franklin Avenue. It's just north and adjacent to the existing Chandelier restaurant.
And what is the zoning at the site, Mr. Marucci?
The zone is BB, general business.
And would you describe the existing site?
If I can refer to page 2 of my plans, that is the existing condition. The existing site right now has a small one-story frame building, which, as was explained before, was the old vegetable and fruit stand. And it sits almost in the center of the property. The majority of the front of the property is paved. The rest of it is just natural in the rear. And one significant feature is that right now in its present condition, it gently slopes towards the rear, towards the adjacent residential properties. And I wanted to make that point because we're going to correct that.
And will the building be demolished should this application be approved?
Yes.
And would you describe the proposed site and proposed improvements?
Should the board accept this application and approve it, the existing building will be removed and the site will be cleared and a parking lot will be created with 2 driveways, an entrance driveway to the south and an exit driveway to the north. I chose this counterclockwise circulation pattern to allow for more sight distance as you exit the parking lot. If the driveway were closer to the restaurant, you'd have a sight distance problem, so I chose the counterclockwise direction. Basically, we would be striping out 27 parking spaces, 26 regular spaces, and 1 van accessible handicap space.
You talked about the slope. Would you describe the topography just a little further, if you would?
Yes. And again, I'll refer to sheet 3, which is my grading and drainage plan. As I stated before, in its existing condition, the property slopes gently towards the rear. So at the present time, any stormwater runoff basically goes onto the adjacent residential properties in the rear. we're going to change that or alleviate that by creating, or by raising that elevation in the back, by installing a retaining wall. And now the drainage will be staying on our property, and we're gonna create a dry well system, so the water will be collected and infiltrated into the ground with an overflow out to the street. So that's gonna make drainage better for the adjacent properties, our property, and also for the street, because you won't have that much water going out onto Franklin Avenue.
Would you describe the proposed lighting?
That's sheet 4 of my plan. We chose a shoebox type lighting. The poles are 18 foot high, so they're not too high. We have 3 poles that'll light up the entire parking lot, and it's designed such that there will be no spillage onto any adjacent properties.
You talked about the ingress and egress. Can you just review the number of spaces and approximately where those parking spaces are located?
Again, with the counterclockwise direction, as you drive into the site, there'll be parking spaces perpendicular to the existing Chandelier restaurant building, and then opposite that, in other words, parallel to Franklin Avenue, there will be 8 spaces that will be perpendicular to the rear property line.
Are you suggesting any restriction with regard to any turn procedure at this location?
At the present time, no.
And are there any zoning violations with regard to this proposal?
There are 3, what I consider minor variances associated with the parking design. The first is the parking space stall size. The ordinance requires a stall size of 9 foot wide by 19 feet deep. We're proposing 9 foot by 18. The second is the parking space setback from the property line. The ordinance requires 5 feet, and we have 1.5 feet. But I just want to emphasize that the close proximity to the property line is basically along our own property line where the restaurant is, and also to the north where we abut another driveway. In the rear, where we abut the residential properties, we are maintaining that 5 feet. The third variance is the minimum drive aisle width. The ordinance requires 24 feet, and we're proposing 22.
And do you feel that these variances fit under C1 or C2 or both?
I believe they fit under both, under the C1. First of all, the property is 100 foot by 100 foot, and that's the best way we can come up with a parking layout, because we don't have any more land, obviously, to make it any larger. And that's what restricts us with these driveway widths and the space depths. I believe that under both the C1 hardship criteria, based on the size of the property, those variances can be granted, but also under C2, where the benefits outweigh any detriments. And the benefits are what I expressed before. Having this parking lot adjacent to the restaurant makes it much safer now than pedestrians having to cross Franklin Avenue. That's a much safer setup for the parking. The drainage will be improved, not only for the restaurant parking lot, but also for the adjacent property owners. The lighting will be an improvement, and it's also an aesthetic improvement based on what's there today. I mean, quite frankly, the site is in a state of disrepair, and it's a good thing that the owners were able to purchase it and hopefully get this parking lot created. So I think based on the C2 criteria, I think the benefits do outweigh any detriments. With respect to the detriments, I believe there's no substantial detriment to the public good for those same reasons that I mentioned before: safety, the drainage improvements, the lighting improvements, the aesthetic improvements. And in my opinion, there's no substantial impairment to the zone plan or zoning ordinance, because the parking lot is a permitted use.
Are you requesting any signage, Mr. Marucci?
No.
And have you had an opportunity to review Mr. Harrich's letter?
Yes.
And do you have any comments with regard to that?
I believe Mr. Harris only had one comment with respect to the number of handicap spaces. He is correct, we're at the cusp. In other words, by law, once you go over 26 parking spaces, I believe you're required to have 2 handicap spaces. I left it at 1. If the board decides that we need 2, we will place 2, but in all fairness, the applicant uses valet parking here the majority of the time, so I don't think the second handicap space is necessary because of the valet park.
May I add a comment to that? That's not driven by the board, that's driven by my department, so he's gonna need 2. The board can't make a recommendation to remove that, so he has to keep the 2 when he would come to my office.
And I have no problem putting the second one in there.
I have no further questions of Mr. Marucci.
The back of the parking lot will be in the sight line of neighbors' backyards. I think it's Center Street. I'm not sure if I have the street correctly.
That's correct. Senator.
So that,
It's Charles Street.
Charles Street. So when there are some houses with their backyards that look out, and my one concern would be, what could we do so that the residents on that street would have, if they looked at something, could we do something with that fencing? Could we do something with foliage, some type of, because otherwise, when the weather's nice and they're enjoying their backyards, they're going to be looking at a parking lot, which is not something that over the years they've been used to.
We are kind of restricted in areas, but what we are proposing, since we have this retaining wall, we are proposing a 4-foot fence on top of that wall.
Oh,
And the
above,
Right, and the
So it
fence-
would bring it to what height then?
Well, the wall at the parking lot level will be basically at level. The height of the wall will be on the neighbor's side because we're raising the grade up a little bit. The fence will be 4 foot high, and we can make it a closed type fence so that the lights won't shine through.
No, I just also, so the neighbors just aren't looking, they don't have to look directly at the parking lot is what I'm asking.
And I
Some
agree
type
with that.
of
We
a
can put a
grading.
4 foot high fence, privacy fence.
And so that's shorter than I am, since I'm 5'5", I don't mean to, I'm sure. So, if it's 4, okay, so I'm a little slow, so bear with me, chief, for a second. No, really, I mean it, I'm not that bright.
I believe you.
So, if the fence is about this high, and it's going to be put on the retaining, on a wall, so it's my backyard, and I'm gonna look out, so how high is that wall actually gonna be? It's gonna be 4 foot on top of what? Because otherwise, it's gonna come here, so I can look right over that wall and I can see the cars.
From the
And-
chandelier
and-
side, from the parking lot side, it will be 4 feet.
But what I'm saying is, I just want those houses that have a backyard, that's all I'm.
The top of the
asking.
fence will be 10 feet above their backyards.
Okay, 10 feet, it'll be,
At-
so
at
it
at
will
its
be
height.
almost twice my height.
Size of the basketball.
However, from the parking lot, it will only be 4 feet. So you're half right.
I'm concerned about the neighbor's views,
Right.
the neighbor's sightline, that's
They
all.
will not see the cars, I can assure you.
That's what I'm concerned about, okay.
Any other member?
Those houses are.
Just to add to what Elaine was saying, it's not just looking at the cars, but at night when they start up and turn on the headlights, I don't want the headlights going to
Well, that's why,
the neighbor's rooms.
well, that's why I will work with
Yeah,
your
with the
professionals.
privacy.
It'll be a privacy
Right,
fence,
no,
so
I
you
was
won't see
just
through it.
adding, it's not just looking at the cars, it's the
Yes.
headlights also. A couple of things. In the corners that you created with the retaining wall and the parking space, it's now blank. What is going there?
We can put some landscaping in there.
Well, it's currently blank.
Well, again, we can put some landscaping, we'll put some landscaping in there. You can't fit any cars in there, so it is a blank area, I agree with you there. It's good for snow removal, has a place for it, but again, we can put some landscaping in there.
Okay, and then on the neighbor's side of the retaining wall, you have like the triangular shape.
Well, again, that's there now, it's a low area. If I need to, I can actually bring the wall right to the property line, and this way just square it off. I can do that.
I just wanted to know if it was going to be,
And I think I agree with you, I would rather square it off there, and it'll look better.
and this way you can use it for snow
Snow
removal or...
And landscape.
Arlene?
It will be a right turn exit only.
I was gonna recommend that.
Okay. I just-
Or no
You're the
left,
chief.
or no left turn, one or the
That's
other, whatever you
whatever,
prefer.
however, yes, I was concerned about people making a left turn.
Again, I chose the counterclockwise to give it more sight distance, but I have no problem if you want to make that no left.
Yeah, that's all. No left turn sign.
No problem.
What is the wall to be? Is it going to be a segmented block wall?
Yes.
So that's a nice looking wall that they'll be looking at, so.
It'll be decorative, yes.
Yeah.
If no more members have any questions of this witness, I'll open up to the public. Anybody have any questions?
Jeff Mattingly, 56 Walnut. Sounds like a great plan. I'm just a little concerned to the north. Is there a fence along the north? Isn't that a two-family house just to the north of it? Headlights like was stated?
Well, there are no parking spaces headed toward the north. Our driveway will meet the driveway of that two-family house.
Okay,
Two
so hard
driveways
to
will
see
meet.
from here. Okay.
So any lights will be coming out towards Franklin Avenue.
All right, so then there'll be no intrusion to the north.
No, not at
Okay.
all.
But you will have the cars parking in the center when they start up. Their headlights will shoot towards that house.
Well, they'll be backing up that way. They'd be turned in.
South.
They'd be turned to the south.
Even if you come in the entrance and there's a second car.
If you come in the entrance, you're gonna go around and park.
They're all facing south.
That's why it's designed that way.
So you have to come in.
You have to go around and you park this way.
Okay, so you're going to come around and the first car will go into this part.
No. If you come in this way, these spaces are open, you can go in this way.
Right, so if you're parked here, you start your car, your headlights go right into the...
Well, it's far enough away, there'll be another car in front of it, most likely.
Well, I'm just explaining what
Sure.
Mr. Mallon was talking
Vic Mafucci, 61 Continental. My opinion would be that you put some kind of sign to restrict parking, but there are stores just on the other side of that house that might want to use the parking lot.
Well, Mr. Marucci,
I would put said no signs.
what is being meant is that you want to put a restriction parking for Chandelier only, I believe is what's being said by Victor.
I have
That's
no
up to
problem
the
with that.
chandelier.
He's right,
That's their
but
private property.
he's right, because otherwise you don't want litigation later because somebody thinks.
We can do
We
that.
have obviously no problem with that.
Sandra Dandy, 74 Charles Street.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Sandra Dandy, I live on Charles Street, 74. My question is this: the retaining wall will only be ground level so that you can build up that dirt in the back, because now it slopes all the way down, correct?
Yes.
So then you're gonna put how high a fence? A solid fence on top of that wall, so it's gonna be ground level, the fence.
The fence will be on top of the wall. The wall is going
But
to
the wall
retain.
will be ground level, correct? Because it slopes all the way down there. So you're gonna bring the wall up to the parking lot, the rest of the ground, so it'll be a level ground, correct?
I don't know exactly where your house is, but the retaining wall, depending on where it is, in this corner here, the wall could be as high as 6 feet.
It's the whole back of the parking lot that would be on Charles Street.
Right, and right now, basically, all the drainage, everything comes towards your house. By putting this retaining wall up and raising the level, it'll be sloping away from your property, and the fence will be on top of that wall.
The front, so then the fence will be ground level, because
Can I-
once you
can I
pick
maybe
up
help?
that slope,
You're missing one thing.
Sorry.
The fence from your backyard, the wall from your backyard height is gonna be 6 feet high.
yeah, that's
The
not
fence is
really
gonna
that
be on
high,
top of that.
because with how, the lights are gonna be 18 feet high.
Well, constructed in a way to restrict overflow of lighting onto your property.
That's full boot lighting, so it doesn't spread.
Well, I just hope that that fence is big enough and tall enough so that we're not looking at parked cars all the time
You will
while
not
we're
see
sitting in our backyards.
You will not see the cars.
I hope not. It'll be a solid fence.
Yes, you will not see the cars.
They have a right.
Could I add to support that statement? When I raised the question, and I think that the answer that I was given is that they said that it will be 10 feet so that you don't have to see any
Right, I'm
cars.
very familiar with the property
Yeah.
in the backyard. He's saying that where it slopes down,
They're gonna,
which is
they're
a,
gonna regrade it. They're gonna regrade it because there's a big difference. At the height of that lot, when you look at the plan, we're talking, it's 120. When it goes down to where you are, there's a 6-foot, almost, if I'm correct, a 6-foot plane down, which means when they pave it, if they don't regrade it, it will force the water in that direction. So what they're gonna do is they're gonna have to regrade, take the surface and take the surface before they pave it and level it on such an angle so that the drainage doesn't come towards you, because that could have negative, it really could have negative effects. And go out this way and establish drainage plans where it will catch the water and it won't even go into flooding the street. Your question's really on target, but they're gonna put that wall up high enough, because they're saying it for the record, so that you don't have, that those houses don't have to see it. 'Cause that's my concern.
only
That was my
concern.
concern.
I have no problem with the parking lot or the chandelier.
Yeah,
I just am concerned about the effect of my property. And, you know, who wants to buy a house with a parking lot behind it?
we
And
agree.
will that be closed off when the Chandelier is closed? Will kids be able to park in there like they do across the street at the Walgreens and that parking lot? Will it be
It'll be
chained
chained
off?
That question is going to be answered by Mr.
It'll
Appicelli.
be chained off at night.
Okay, great.
Okay, I have actually 3 questions. One is for Mr. Appicello, and 2 are for you, architect. First question, will there be car stops so nobody goes into the fence in the back?
I didn't propose any. I don't really see any need for it because, again, my understanding is the majority of times they're going to be valeted. The cars will be valeted in there, and valets know how to, how to do that all the time.
The reason I'm saying this is because you're gonna have a high retaining wall.
Well,
And if somebody loses control of the car, it could happen to anybody. Car will hit the fence, people could be in the yard, the fence could fall on their heads.
we'll also remember that the parking lot is going to be curved all the way around.
But you're also saying this is gonna be 5 feet off the property line, so what would be the problem of putting the bumper stops at least on the back? Just the back, to protect the people. The second question is,
I'll answer that question though.
well, I wanna
I
put 2
think-
together. The second question has to do with the fence. Although they will not be looking at the parking lot, anyone who parks there will be able to look in their yard. So it invades their property, their privacy. The fence should be 6 to 8 feet high, so they can't look into their property either. People are in their yard, they don't want people parking and then they can look down on them.
Again, it's a solid fence.
It's only
I-
4 foot.
I've never, if you wanna go 6 feet, again, I have no problem with that.
It's gonna be 10 feet above their property though.
No, you're not listening. They can't look into the parking lot, but the parking lot can look down into their yard. They have a right to privacy too.
So put a 6-foot fence. Solid.
Yeah.
I have no problem with 6 feet, 8 feet, I think is.
All right, 6 foot is reasonable. Now, the last question I have is for the gentleman. Years ago, a case came before the zoning board, I'm sorry, by your father. Had to do with parking, I believe, on the property that was north of this. Do they own the property, or there was any consideration to put parking there? Because we approved it years ago. I don't know how many years, it was at least 10, 15 years.
I'll answer that question.
Actually, I was on that application myself. It wasn't the property to the north, there was at least 2 more properties.
Okay, all right, so it's got nothing to do with this,
No.
not adjoining. Okay, that's all my only question. Thank you.
I can concur with the 6-foot high fence.
This question, is there a curb along the back wall?
Yes,
This curb,
Yes.
what, Belgian block curb?
I would propose Belgian block, yes.
So that could act as a stop.
It does.
My client has indicated if the board sees, we're proposing a 4-foot fence. If the board wants to follow the recommendation of the zoning board chairman to put a 6-foot fence, my client has no objection.
Chris Carrillo. I actually am the owner of the house right behind this property here that we're about to do the work on, and like you said, I think the 6-foot height fence would be absolutely perfect, because like you said, I need privacy in my backyard. Especially if I have children in the backyard, whatever's going on. Like you said, you can see right to my property. I understand I can't see into yours, but as long as I have my own privacy as well. The way it's set up now, I know that there's a fence there now, I don't know how that fence is right now.
And again, when Mr. Apicella asked us to do this work and do the survey and the site plan, we took everything into consideration. Everything we're doing here is to make it better for the residential properties that are behind this parking lot. Both with respect to drainage, with respect to lighting, and with respect to privacy. That's why we're proposing the fence on top of the wall. Again, I have no problem with the 6-foot high fence. You have no privacy there today, the way it is. And it's been like that for years. I mean, the fence that's there now is dilapidated.
It's empty most of the time though.
Empty, but still.
Empty and trees in the back. Like
but
Torriello had trees in the back.
It's in a state of disrepair for a long time.
Again, my client has no objection to a 6-foot fence if the board sees fit to impose that.
Anybody else in the public want to? If there's no further questions, would someone like to make a motion
So moved.
to approve with the following conditions, a 6-foot closed-type privacy fence and no left turn? Right, that's the 2 conditions.
Chained off at night.
What's that? And chained off at night.
To the second handicap.
And a sign,
That's, he's doing that anyway. He has to do it. I second.
Lois, call the vote. Mark, did you second it?
I did.
Yes, Mark.
Mr. Tenio,
Yes.
Mrs. Inaugurato,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mrs. Shore,
Yes.
Mr. Medikini,
Yes.
Mr. Anello.
Yes.
Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Mr. Gassion.
Someone like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Point of order, point of order.
Mr. Chairman, I just have point of order. There was an advertisement in Star Lightning that there's going to be a public hearing tonight regarding 675, 690 Main Street.
Mr. Di Lorenzo, you want to address that?
Yeah, there's nothing going on with that, and we didn't, the planning board didn't have nothing to do with that. I think the redevelopment attorney put something out, it was told by somebody else, not by the board, and he tried to pull it, and he couldn't pull it from the newspaper, so they're not having anything.
Because it didn't have either the planning board secretary or the town clerk's name on it.
Yeah.
It was scheduled for tonight.
Yeah, Mr. Di Lorenzo brought it to my attention tonight. That was
The
done in error.
developer put it in the paper.
We don't know who did it. We might think it went to the redevelopment attorney, we don't know. Kevin Esposito directed him at the beginning of January, you know, get all mixed, so.
Just one thing, then the planning board had no knowledge whatsoever of that advertisement?
Correct.
Absolutely not.
Thank you.
Absolutely none.
Meeting's adjourned.